Is there a total collapse in the enthusiast and classic car market, or do sellers just have really unrealistic expectations? We're going to examine that by analyzing. I don't know if you guys can hear that. We're going to examine that along with the results from our last show. This is Bid Nerds. The bidding starts now. Bid Nerds is your YouTube card game show. A very fast opening. We are here. Welcome to a brand new episode of Bid Nerds, everyone. My name is John Polnik, coming to you live from the downtown Las Vegas Container Park, along with my partner Michael Deeb in San Francisco. This is the show where we play the prices right with cars on Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, PCAR Market, Haggerty, and more. But really, what we're doing tonight, we got to ask the big question: is there a total collapse in the market, or do sellers just have really ridiculously unrealistic expectations? We're going to look at the listings that we talked about on the last episode, analyze the results, and see if we can answer that question. We're also going to, look at some new cars, analyze some new listings, and make some new predictions. You excited for it, Michael Deeb? What do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah, JP. I mean, look, the question seems very severe, but based on the results of the cars we selected on the last show, it's a really good question. So let's jump right in.
Lots going on. All right, guys. And if you are new to the show, thank you for joining us. This is a live show. So if you're joining us after it's live, please bear with our live stuff. All right. Well, what was the first car on the list from the last episode, Michael Deeb?
All right, JP, let's circle right back to the car that was on PCAR Market. And I have to say, of the cars we've done this year, this car was sort of a surprisingly beautiful choice. The 1990 Porsche 964 Carrera 4 that was done by RWB in the Carolinas, where Nakai-san actually traveled to the Carolinas and did this car on site on the East Coast, which is, obviously 3,000 miles away from his shop in LA. Stunning car in this Sepang bronze metallic. The car is called, it looks like it was nicknamed Maverick, but it looks like Nakai-san's personal car, Stella, and it has the champion wing and the deep dish Workmeister S1 wheels. It's got all the classic RWB features, and it's on the right platform. So super cool car, JP. It was at a very strong bid when we looked at it just a couple of days ago, again on PCAR Market. Which is an interesting choice. And JP, I thought I was going to be the high guy at 150,000. 151,000 was my bid. JP, you took the over, which sort of left me wondering if I had bid too low. You said $161,000. And Gerd, everybody's favorite Yahtzee king, joined us in studio in the Container Park at the Rami studio, was nice enough not to brandish his crown in front of everybody. And Gerd took the over on you, JP. Ha! $169,000. John, our car did really well on PCAR Market. I tip my cap to PCAR Market for getting a hammer bid of $191,666 on 75 bids. Wow. But our car failed to sell at that number and is currently sitting in the chum bucket for $250,000. JP, I am totally impressed that PCAR Market did really well with this. I also commend the seller of the car. Lots of assets were provided, very decent and honest photography. And let's face it, this car is, aside from the fact that it looks like Nakai-san's personal car, it's essentially a one-of-one in the marketplace. At $191,000, I hate to say this, JP, I think he should have taken the money. Look, you can argue that this car could have been or should have been or one time was worth $250,000, but stick your head outside the window of the office that you're sitting in and look around at the world today. The market is soft. We're heading to an election. Things are contentious, and cars in the secondary market, especially niche cars, are very soft. I think $190,000 is all this car is worth today. 75 bids backs up my comment, and I think you should have taken the money. $250 in the chum bucket is outrageous. maybe he's holding out to get $200,000. But when you're only $8,000 away in a soft market before Car Week, you should have taken the money. JP, is it a total collapse? I think that this auction lot was a success. I think the counterpart to your question, which is, are owners having too high expectations? I'd say that is absolutely the case on this lot. Would you agree with that statement?
100%. It's rare that you and I agree on something right out of the gate, and this seller is a straight up idiot. They own this car. If this car, right, I mean, if this car, and look, we talked about this on the last episode. It's hard not to talk about this every time you bring up an RWB, but you have to do it because the fact is most of these cars are all show and no go. This is just a 964 Carrera 4. This is an all-wheel drive Carrera 4. It's already a heavy car for the era of car. It's already underpowered, and now you're going to add all this whiz-bang stuff to it. You're going to add air ride and huge fenders and massive wheels with tons of rubber. You're doing all the things to a Porsche that you don't want to do unless you're adding power. If you're going to add a turbo engine or a built, 3.8 liter or something like that, really go for it and get some power out of this thing. But this car has less than 300 horsepower, significantly less than 300 horsepower. It's not going to be able to push all this extra whiz-bang weight around. You are actually hurting the car. And the fact that these continue to bring big money, nearly $200,000 for this hard parking show car, is just, it's amazing. PCAR Market, I said PCAR Market sucks. We showed the little graphic. Look, we've got the PCAR Market sucks graphic. Yeah, I ish all over PCAR Market all the time, but I'm with you, Deeb. You're right. Really wasn't their fault this time. They got the eyeballs, 75 people, and this guy didn't sell at $200,000. This guy definitely has unrealistic expectations. Total fail on the seller's part, not necessarily PCAR Market's fault. If anything, we say, is there a total collapse in the market? I think this auction result, even though it failed to sell because the seller's an idiot, shows that the market has not collapsed. The fact that this car still brings almost $200,000 means there's still people out there willing to pay almost $200,000 for an RWB. What is going on? Who is this guy? What was he thinking?
JP, listen to this. Kamijiro. That's the Japanese word for paperweight. They should have named this the 964 RWB Kamirijiro.
Right? Paperweight. I mean, holy cow. We love hearing what you guys think of the results of the auctions that we look at. Do you think this seller should have taken that money? Or do you think the seller was smart for holding out and they're going to hold on to this car? And when is the market ever going to come back to $250,000? I think this car might bring $250,000 in a few years when inflation goes up another 20 or 30%. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below, and let's move on to the next car.
Praying for another PCAR Market success story. The seller who failed to sell his car is praying for inflation. What
just
a
like
strategy.
The government. Yeah. For real, think about it. There's something very real there. When inflation's going up and interest rates were so low, it's like, yeah, why not load up on debt? Not only is the money super cheap, but the money's being devalued, so your debt is the real value of your debt is going down. That's how the government works, right? They love inflation because all that debt that they're racking up the value is going down. All right, how do you think this whole federal government thing works? What's the next car on the list? What do we got?
All right, JP, the boomerang of all boomerangs is back. Our 1973 Porsche 911 Speedster conversion 3.6 that's on PCAR Market. Again, you're not accidentally watching an old episode of the Bid Nerds. This is the same car with the same assets on the same platform. I swear to God, this is a different show. JP, our car basically made, I think, $110,000 in the natural auction last time it ran, which was just a few months ago, and wound up in the deal tank for just under $200,000. This really cool special car came back to market with the same assets on the same platform and no new news And this time around, we wondered how it would do. And again, they did nothing to update this listing. And my suggestion was they should have run it no reserve. I said that I think this car would hit $73,000 and then wind up in the deal tank for very close to what it was last time, close to 200 grand. JP, you took the over at $80,000. And again, didn't think that your number would get it done. None of us would have. And then Gerd, our reigning Yahtzee champ, joined us in the Rami studio on set for the last show. Gerd split the difference between us, JP, which is really interesting. It made me think you and I were right on the money. Gerd went $76,000. John, our car hammered for just 60 grand. I was the low guy, and I was over by $13,000. It failed to sell on just 19 bids. But here's where you might want to sit down, JP. That long hood Speedster with a 3.6 that you love is in the chum bucket right now for $110,000. JP, I say it's time to make him a low ball offer. If you would buy this car for 60 grand, I think you should. Maybe offer him your 964 C4 cab as partial trade towards that $65,000 offer. But if you don't at least make an offer on this car, I don't know, man. You have stated over and over again how much you like this car, and the entire herd generation would love to see you in it. So, JP, what are you going to offer this guy, knowing that his car is dangling in a chum bucket for just $110,000?
Well, I mean, I think we need to set up a GoFundMe account and see if the Nerd Herd will buy the nerds an official Speedster. I don't know. What do you guys think of that plan? This car, is there a market collapse? Does this result show or prove that there's some kind of big old nuclear explosion going off in the market, collapsing all the prices? And the answer is hard no. The last car that we talked about, that RWB brought almost $200,000, failed to sell because that seller had an unrealistic expectation of trying to get $250,000. This goofball, he tried to sell this car 3 months ago. The car wound up in the chum bucket for, it was over 200, wasn't it?
No, just under 200. But
just
still,
under
around 200.
Okay, so let's call it 190 or 180 or something like that, right? I mean, and now he's down to $110 in the chum bucket. He had a come to Jesus moment, but he should have had the come to Jesus moment back in, Easter. If he would have realized and said, hey, he could have gotten that $110,000 back then, I think, because even though the car only got bid up to about $89,000 or $90,000, the delta between $90,000 and $110, I think, could have been closed. I think PCAR Market, the way they work, they always, when an auction fails to sell, they send their salespeople out calling all the bidders and trying to get them to upbid and see if they can bridge the gap. But that delta was just ridiculous before. Now everyone's gonna be like, no, just forget it, dude. You're out. This car, somebody said in the comments, one of the Nerd Herd said it's radioactive, and I agree wholeheartedly. I don't. Do you think that this guy is gonna have? I mean, if someone were to reach out and try to buy this car for, say, anything less than what it reached last time, do you think this guy actually sells it? Do you think he's had that much of a come to Jesus moment?
I really don't know, JP. It's very weird. I'm looking at the old listing. So back in May, this car failed to sell at $89,000 on 14 bids. And I remember, I think a lot of us do, that it wound up in the chum bucket for like 190 or 195. Now it's in the chum bucket for 110, but like 89 is the most anybody's ever offered him for the car. So God, he clearly wants to sell this thing. He's taken $80,000 off his asking price, but nobody has implied to him in any shape or form that his car, the way it's presented, is worth more than $100,000. So something's got to give.
It just doesn't seem like he's there either. He's not going the extra mile to get new assets. It's just running the same ad again, expecting different results. Isn't that the literal definition of crazy? I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think this guy should have taken the $60,000 this time? Do you think there's any chance he'll ever sell this car? And really, the big question, and the way we open the show, are the results of this auction indicative of a collapse or just a ridiculously unrealistic seller with crazy expectations? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and let's get to the last car we talked about on the last episode. Michael D.
All right, JP, one of our favorites, an E60 M5 with the V10. This one, however, is equipped with a 6-speed manual, which makes it pretty rare. 68,000 miles on the odometer out of Hesperia, California. Revisiting the result of this car on Cars and Bids. JP, this was going to be a fun one for us because you had looked at an M6 convertible recently and cited this car as sort of a baseline. John, I thought this car would sort of hammer at just under the industry and average of like $44,000. My bid was 37. I thought it wouldn't break 40. You took the under by 10 grand at $27,000. And Gerd, our Yahtzee champ, was in studio, in the Romeo studio with you at the Container Park. JP, he split the difference between us again, but closer to me at $35,000. The result on this is interesting, JP. The hammer was $31,249. It failed to sell at that number on 19 bids. John, based on the sort of the bids we got from the herd and what me, you, and Gerd were talking about, I'm not so sure that that wasn't all the money and that this guy probably should have taken that number. At least Cars and Bids should have helped bridge the delta to make the guy whole at like $33,000 or $33,500 or something like that. JP, just so you're scoring this at home, you were at 27. Gerd was at 35. The car hammer is at 31,249. I had to get out my calculator. Gerd beat you to the win by $498, but it's very interesting how you guys split the difference on that one. So well done.
Why do I invite that guy? Gerd, come on, man. Give us a chance.
I told him on the last show it's the last time we'd ever see his face. Since none of us are buying a Chevy anytime soon, and he won't be invited back the way he keeps mopping the floor of the studio with us. But that's a couple of wins for Gerd on the last show. JP, what do you think of that result? I mean, look, according to if you look at this car on paper, this should have been just over $40,000 with a desirable color, reasonable miles, and a rare transmission. And yet this car couldn't be sold for $32,000. Like this is that's. I mean, the market is crumbling, John. That's my opinion. On a car like this,
I don't think that this car was helped by being on Cars and Bids. I think Cars and Bids just isn't getting the eyeballs right now. This car isn't that special, but it is special enough to be able to bring more money than this. I think 31 grand just wasn't enough to do it, and I think the seller may actually have been smart not to let it go there and might try to do it again, see if he can get this car on BAT. There just aren't a ton of people looking for this generation of M5. Yeah, it's got the 6-speed manual. That's great, but it's just not a car that is like on anyone's list. You know, people, I think right now are still spending some money on special cars. I mean, again, I'll keep going back to that RWB at the top of the show. Failed to sell, but still brought $200,000 almost. That means there are people out there with money still looking to spend it on special stuff. I just don't think anyone thinks of an M5 from this generation, a 2008, as special. This is just not a car that's on anyone's radar, and you got to get it in front of a bunch of eyeballs someplace like BAT where someone's like, yeah, okay, I'd like to get kind of a special car, but I don't have that big money. Oh yeah, I kind of forgot these even exist. That is a cool car. Maybe you spark a couple of people to remind them that they're even out there, but no one's looking, no one's searching for this car. And I think that's the only way that Cars and Bids is selling anything right now, is if someone is searching for a specific car and they happen to find it on one of these lesser platforms, that's how a car is going to sell. But if it's not special, no one's searching for it, they don't get enough eyeballs, the car is just going to linger and die. It has to be on BAT at this point, or you're screwed. Yeah. That's my take on it. What do you guys think? Oh, you're going to have one more thing to say? Yeah.
No, I was just going to agree with you. I think you're right.
Yeah. Well, let us know what you guys think out there in the Nerd Herd. The Nerd Herd's rocking it. We got all our friends in here tonight. Thanks for hanging out. Leaf is here. We got Chris Carbine. We got Randy. Do we have some new people in the Nerd Herd? If you guys, look, the Nerd Herd is awesome. They always say hello to the new members, the new people hanging out in the chat. That is our favorite part of the show, is you guys hanging out with us, giving us feedback and letting us know how wrong we are about everything. We love hearing from you guys. That's That's why we do this show live. It's just great having you guys here. So if you guys see anyone new, make sure you say hello to them. And while you're there, again, there's more people in the chat than there are thumbs up. Give us a thumbs up, and let's see if we can get some more people to hang out in the chat, because with those thumbs up, that will get the show out to more people right now because we are live. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we've got new predictions, and we'll see if we can answer this question. Is there a total collapse, or do sellers just have unrealistic expectations? We're going to find out in about 60 seconds. Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you gotta call our friend Steve at Godden, this guy. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about, and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Hey guys, you're probably looking at your watch and wondering if Bid Nerds will ever end. So you better talk to our friends at Our Smiths to make sure your Rolex, Tag Heuer, AP, or any fine timepiece is in tip-top shape. Our Smiths, fine Swiss repair. What's up, Anthony? He is in the chat. Anthony is the owner of Our Smiths, guys. So I think everybody in the chat probably knows that. Everyone in the Nerd Herd knows that Anthony is the Our Smiths guy. But if you don't know that already, reach out to Anthony and say, hey, man, fix my fine Swiss watch. Well, I got a fine Swiss watch on today. Maybe that's why we were on time. It's crazy. All right. Let's get to some new predictions, because the big question of the day is there a total market collapse, or do sellers have crazy expectations? We've got 3 or 4 cars to talk about tonight that I think will give us a better indication of what's actually going on. The 3 cars that we talked about in the last episode were on poor platforms. They were, I think the RWB is the only one that really gave us any information, I think. So let's get to these first 3 cars and see what we got and see if we can help answer that question.
All right, JP, the first car is really interested. It's a Runge Frankfurt Flyer, and it's car number 3. JP, we have results from car number 4 and car number 8 selling in 2018 and 2019. A lot has happened since then, but one thing that remains the same is these cars are so badass. JP, when you and I met back in the Godden Porsche days, this is a car and a brand that you turned me on to. Chris Runge making these cars hand-built by him. This particular one, Frankfurt Flyer number 3, was hand-built by him in the early 2010s and used in California as an SCCA race car. It's powered by a 1.3-liter Volkswagen Flat 4 and features, of course, his sort of signature bare aluminum bodywork, and in this instance with a number 4 livery. This particular car rides on a Beck Speedster chassis and is equipped with fully independent suspension, 15-inch wheels, and 4-wheel drum brakes. 4-speed manual, removable tonneau cover. It's got these like incredible metal little fixed back seats and a little tiny Lexan windscreen. JP, from the early days when this car was made, and as early as you were aware of these cars being made by Chris Runge, they were semi-affordable as a kit car. And I know you're kicking yourself every time you see one of these that you didn't buy one when they were affordable. But today, I think the conversation starts at 150 plus a donor car and probably goes up from there. He's really taken off, and he's making more than just the Frankfurt Flyer model these days. And I imagine you can get yourself a nice big Type 4 motor as well if you really want to go as fast as these cars look. But I love the idea of them. I think they're really, really cool. They're super part of that like Art Deco flying kind of brigade thing from a whole design era. They got a whole Bauhaus design, something going on that is very tangible and very familiar, yet they're incredibly unique. And I absolutely love the cars. I'm such a fanboy, JP. I actually went to their website and ordered a poster of a car that they shot in black and white and plan to frame it and put in my next man cave. So JP, I picked this car for you because I know how much you love them. I'm thrilled that you turned me on to what he's doing. I think he's very original and super talented. And I look forward to the day I get to see one of these or actually drive one on the road. I think they just like it. Just looking at the car stationary in very terrible photography, I still want to be behind the wheel of this thing. So that says a lot about the design of the car. I'll let you explain more about him and what he crafts to our audience, because I imagine even the hardened car guys in the Nerd Herd may not be familiar with Chris Runge's Frankfurt Flyer.
These are the coolest cars in the world. I don't know if there's a car I like better than one of these, and they are so rare. It's so like you had mentioned that you need the donor. There aren't donor cars on these are like from scratch. He builds a tube frame. This is not a Volkswagen. This isn't a some other car that had a body kit put on it. Like a lot of times you see speedsters and stuff like that. And we talked about that 904 replica on an episode recently. This car, Chris is out there in his garage with a French wheel, banging on metal and crafting every part on these darn things. I have never been in one. I've been lucky enough to see a few, but I just think this is just everything to love about enthusiast cars. This has all that nostalgia of a classic car, but this isn't a classic car. This car is only like 10 years old or something like that. 20 years old, 15 years old. Yeah. These are brand new from scratch from a guy here in America bringing back crafts. This is what it's all about. I love Rod Emery's cars. Rod Emery takes a 356 and restores it or reimagines it. I love Singer cars. I love the idea that you're going to take a 911 and rebuild it into the best possible version of itself. A 911 living its best life. This car is a truly unique thing that someone made. It's inspired by the classic Porsches and classic German cars that we all love, but every single one is its own piece of art. And you're absolutely right. These were affordable. I remember seeing the Frankfurt Flyer 1. I think it was on, if I remember correctly, I think I was still living in Seattle. It was on eBay, and it sold for like $29,000.
Oh my God!
I remember going, "Gosh, should I buy?" I think I spent that much money on my 993 at the time. It was like, the performance of one of these, I have no idea what it's like, but don't care. I've met Chris a couple of times. We don't know each other. We're not friends or anything like that. I've had a couple of conversations with him online talking about, we always wanted to do a Derfossination episode about one of his cars, but the timing just never synced up. He's like in the Midwest, someplace where it's cold in the wintertime. So it was like,
Minnesota, I think.
Minnesota,
I think his cars come out outside of Minnesota. Yeah.
Yeah, but just, man, all the love to Chris and his creations, and this really is a true dream car. I don't think there is any car that exists that I'd be more excited to see than one of Chris's cars in real life or to drive around. I mean, I know there's stuff that's worth way, way, way more. Don't care. This is just, don't you just want to support American cars?
No,
there's just no American cars I really want. But I want to love an American car. And here's one. Some guy built it in his backyard. I don't know. Let's get to the values. What do other people love these things as much as I do? And in a market that's as crazy and volatile as it is right now, with the potential for a collapse, a lot of sellers unrealistic expectations. Is this seller someone with crazy expectations, or is this the kind of car that's just going to overcome that and bring the big money? What do you think? What's the number for you, Michael D?
JP, before we jump into the numbers, I want to say that if you scroll down in the comments, Chris Runge himself does a whole paragraph about this particular car and the inspiration. The Land Speed legends Tom Birch and Chuck Beck built the chassis for the mechanicals, and then he did the aluminum. It was to be built in the spirit of the World War II Glocker VW specials from that era. And that Land Speed record had a 4-cam car, while this one is just a 36 horsepower VW. But really cool that he would chime in on his own car in the secondary market. He stands to profit nothing other than to, correctly endorse the spirit of his car. I think that's a class act all the way. Way to go, Chris Runge. And good luck to the seller on Bring a Trailer out of South Lake Tahoe with the sale of this car. 700 miles shown, true mileage unknown. Our car is sitting at, JP, $88,888. That comes to us by way of, as I scroll, 12 bids, and our car closes tomorrow. The two Frankfurt Flyers that have sold in 2018 and 2019 went for like 103 and 120 something thousand respectively. I had put down initially 123,000, but as I look at this car and I think about today's market, and I think about how Chris's cars have gone up in value. His new cars cost more. His old cars demand more in the secondary market. I actually think this car is going to come really close to doubling where it's at. JP, I'm just going to go all in on this car, set the bar high, and then let you decide if you want to jump over it or not. But I'm just going to say, I would think that if you want one of his cars that's showing less than 1,000 miles, you're going to have to pay $150,000 for one. I can't imagine one of his cars today selling for less. And unless this one has some sort of documented smash up from racing in the SCCA in a putt-putt class, then I think this car, despite having racing hours, is still relatively untouched. So I'm going to go 150 grand, JP, because I can't wrap my brain around one of these selling for less. So 150 to you. Do you dare go over that?
Boy, that's a good bid. That's right. That's basically where I was going to be at. I do think that a year and a half ago, this car is definitely pushing, much higher than that. But right now, it's going to be really, really interesting to see what someone will pay for this car. Look, is there any world where you would rather have that stupid RWB for $189,000 over this thing? I mean, we talk about, like, if you're going to be an underpowered car, it may as well, look, even a 30-something horsepower, this car only weighs 1,300 pounds. This thing's going to rip.
Oh, my God, yeah.
How awesome would it be to buy this car and put, like, a 2.7 911 engine in this thing or something like that, like the guys did with that 904 replica. I think, honestly, that's the thing to do with this car, and I think that's the thing that holds it back, is that the engine really isn't, but the engine is period correct, even though the car doesn't exist from an actual period, but it is in the right idea of, in the spirit of what this car's inspiration was. I'm gonna go over you by a hair. I'm just gonna go $155, and I want to be wrong here. I want to be wrong in a big way. I want this car to make $200,000. I think the world, I will feel there's a lot going on in the world right now, guys. We don't have to get into all the crazy crap in politics, and there's a lot to be, like, kind of freaked out about. I would feel a whole lot better about the world if this Runge brought $200,000. I would just be like, okay, you know what? Everything's gonna be okay. No problems. We're fine here. But I'm skeptical that it'll bring that much. But I certainly think it's worth it. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. The nerd herd is definitely more bearish than us. Yeah.
Yeah, they're really soft on it. Only Anthony and Gerd are around us. Michael S is around us, but a lot of 16s and 9s and 11s, and wow.
Yeah,
shocked.
I mean, I think a lot of people see stuff like this and they just think of, like, the 356 replicas and the 550 replicas, even in the 904 replicas. This is not a replica. This is a bespoke coach works car. I mean, this is a ground up creation, from the ground up creation. I don't know. Obviously I believe in it. I'm curious why some of the people are bidding so low on this. Some of you guys, if you've bid significantly lower than us, let us know why. What's your thinking? I'm curious. Real question. I'm not ridiculing. I'm not saying you're wrong. Just genuinely want to know what's holding you back on what you think the value is. And do you agree with me that this car is way cooler than the RWB? I definitely want your opinion on that. Let us know, and we will be back on Wednesday with the result of this car. Actually, wait, today's Wednesday. We'll be back on Sunday with the results of this auction, and we'll find out to see how it does. But we've still got more cars, so stick around. What do we got? What's the next one?
All right, JP, here's a car I honestly can't remember us covering. So I selected off of Bring a Trailer a 2015 Jaguar F-Type R Coupe. Our car showing just 10,000 miles out of Utica. Am I saying that right? Utica, Utica, New York. But again, super low miles, desirable colorway with the black and the red leather interior. The Type R Coupe has the 5-liter V8. So it's a supercharged 5-liter V8 with an 8-speed automatic transmission. Now, they made smaller motors, John, that were available with a manual. But if you upgraded to the R to get the supercharged V8 and all the horsepower that bestowed you, in this instance, 550 horsepower paired with 500 pound-foot of torque, that motor was only available in the United States with an 8-speed automatic, which is kind of a bummer because I think the manual in a short wheelbase car like this, despite the heft and perhaps unrefined suspension compared to a Porsche or something Italian, would still be a fun car to drive. Might not be a fun car to own when it comes to maintenance and reliability. But if you had to Turo a car when you came to town, wouldn't it be fun to have a 550 horsepower British sports car? I just think these cars are kind of cool. This one's sort of low miles. Not something I'd want to own, but something I'd love to drive for the weekend. And we haven't really taken a deep dive on one of these cars in a while. These cars, I'll look up the MSRP on this, but JP, these cars do not bring the money. This is a $105,000 car up front. And I doubt, here we go, almost 9-10 model years later. I don't think this car is worth 50 cents on the dollar with just 10,000 miles. And it looks to be in very good cosmetic condition. I don't know how these are as far as reliability down the road, but Jaguars just don't hold their value like our favorite Porsches do. JP, what do you think of an F-Type R Coupe with the Polnik package? This thing's black with red calipers, got the big motor. You could almost keep up with Rami in one of his outrageous cars in this thing, JP. You want to put the, what's that little camera we use for all the filming that the thing dials around in a million circles? What do you call that thing? The gyro?
The Osmo, yeah.
Yeah.
These cars, I think, were one of the coolest. This is definitely the best looking Jag has made since the original E-Type or whatever. These things are just absolutely fantastic looking. But I remember when they came out not that long ago, and just like every other European car manufacturer, from Aston Martin to, I don't know, you name it, everybody, they're always like, oh, the Vantage is going to be the car that's going to take over the 911 market. Oh, the AMG GT from Mercedes, that's finally going to beat out all those 911 buyers. We finally have something to compete. Jaguar comes out with this thing. Oh yeah, it's definitely going to be the car to compete with the 911. It's like, they're neat. They look great. It ain't no 911, man. These cars the R is very fast. The one I want, honestly, is the 6-cylinder one with a manual and the sport exhaust. These cars, the best thing about them is how they sound. If they have the sport sound package, they sound magnificent. Both the 6-cylinder and the 8-cylinder. Wasn't there a supercharged version of the 6-cylinder? Someone's gonna have to remind me.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So the supercharged with a 6-speed, that's the way to go. Yes, the R would be faster and probably has more fancy doodads or whatever, but who cares? This is just a neat looking. I think if this car is gonna really be competition to Porsche in a sector, it's against the Boxster, not a 911. And this car just looks it just looks magnificent in coupe. And I kind of like the functionality of it, that big old hatchback in there. It'd be a great car to load stuff around. But everyone I know that's had one of these, you hear about problems with them, major transmission issues and stuff like that. I just don't see this car being something kind of like that M5 though, that anyone's really looking for. This is borderline used car territory. It is special because it's an R, but if there is any kind of downward force in the market, this is the kind of car that's going to take a big hit. Kind of like the Rapide that we talked about, the Aston Martin Rapide a couple of weeks ago. Cars that are these kind of luxury / pseudo sports, not really a sports car, but not really a luxury car. It's just, if you're going to buy something like this, just go get the new thing and be done with it. All right. What's it going to bring? What do we think?
All right, JP, it is worth noting that while this car was delivered by Bobby Rahal's Jaguar dealership in Pennsylvania, this car is titled and has spent its entire life in Florida. So despite the listing being up there in Utica, New York, this car's lifetime has been in the sweltering humid heat of Florida. And I think that's kind of a bummer. If you're looking for one, you're going to go, cool, black and red, low miles. But if you read between the lines in a Florida car, I'm not so sure I'd want to go after this one. How savvy is the Jaguar buyer? JP, I don't have a lot of faith. So despite I'm pandering to the nerd herd, who I think is a legion of smart guys that would probably stay away from this car, I think the average moron that's on Bring a Trailer will look past the Florida Carfax and bid this car up to a retail number because of the low miles. John, our car is sitting at $36,000 on 19 bids. I think $48,000 is going to win this car and take it home. I don't think it breaks 50, but I think there's easily another $12,000 in it because of the low miles and being the most performance spec. And I'm got a soft spot for the black and red colorway. And I think a lot of I don't know. I think it would do well. I don't think the red will hold it back. I think it'll enhance its specialness if such a thing exists for a Jaguar. So JP, I'm going all in on this car. 48, despite the soft market, and everything you said about this car would be true if it had 30,000 miles on it. But I think the 10,000 miles on the R spec holds it up. 48 to you, JP. Where you at?
Yeah, I mean, that's a solid analysis, given that the low miles, but I just don't think anybody cares. I just don't think there's enough people that are going, I want a really low mileage one, so I'll pay extra for it. It's like, I think that's the reason why it'll get, I mean, maybe if it breaks 44,000 would be my bid.
That's
There's
good.
no way this thing
generous.
gets to 50.
That's generous.
6 months ago, this thing gets 50, but no way now. I don't think it happens. And I would not be surprised if it fails to sell at that too, because this is one of those situations we keep asking this on this episode: is there a total collapse in the market, or do sellers have unrealistic expectations? I got to think that Bring a Trailer, they're going to be putting more and more downward pressure on people's expectations. So you got to think that those reserves are going lower and lower and lower. But this car probably started, the gestation of its ad process probably started 4 weeks ago. And 4 weeks ago, the world was different. I mean, just look at all the stuff that's happened in the last week or two, right? So I got to think that if you if you're calling BAT, if you're submitting a car right now, the reserve numbers that they're allowing for cars have to be 20% less than they were 4 weeks ago, would be my guess. Would you guess that? What do you think?
I would say they're not, because we continue to see things not selling. I actually don't think Bring a Trailer is reacting fast enough to the changing market, and the FTSs exemplify that or broadcast that.
But don't you think? But don't you think? And I'm sorry to interrupt, but don't you think?
No,
because it takes so long for BAT to get an ad active that there is a massive latency between what the forces that they're pushing on their sellers versus the time that passes by the time the ads actually go live. It's just like it's just out of sync. It's just whatever your expectations were 4 weeks ago should be drastically different than what they are right now. And this ad came to life at least a month ago, at least, maybe longer.
Fair point. And the problem is that you and I aren't privy to the data that quantifies your argument, but it's a fair point. Yeah. I still think BAT is too slow.
Yeah, agreed. Well, because of that latency. I mean, they could. What are they going to do? It's like right now, if they're 20% lower than they were 4 weeks ago, okay.
Despite that latency, they're too slow. I don't think there's as dull a mind as you and I have. I think if we walked into BAT, we'd be among the sharpest tools in the shed. That's sad.
I don't agree with that, but we are not sharp as hacks. We could be president. Okay.
Idiocracy.
Right here. Vote the two nerds. You can't do much worse.
Yeah, Dumb and Dumber 2024.
Either one of us. Pick one. Write us in. There it is. Write-in campaign. All right. So it's either we're going to be elected president at the end of this episode or as a result of this episode, or we're going to start a GoFundMe to buy me that lousy long hood Speedster monstrosity on PCAR Market that's in the chum bucket. I like the latter. I'd rather have the Speedster than be the president. That's for damn sure.
Well, all right. I'm going to pose a question to you. Would you rather the Speedster or the Runge?
Oh my God! Come on, that's not a question. I said that the Runge is literally the coolest car there is. So yeah, I mean, it's not even. Really? But it is fun fodder. All right, let's move on to the next car. What do we got?
All right, pandering to my co-host, 1992 Volkswagen GTi 16 valve. JP, come on. I think you like Mark IIs as much as I do. This is sort of my favorite generation. I love the 4 round headlights and the Recaro seats on this. This is kind of my favorite car, JP. The only difference is, oh yeah, no, this one has the 2-liter and a 16 valve. Yeah, this car is cool. Bring a trailer in black out of San Diego, California, showing 88,000 miles with a 2-liter 16 valve inline 4. JP, you can explain the difference to me as to what year, or if at the same time Volkswagen offered both a 1.8 and a 2-liter 16 valve. But this car, this is the one that I like, with the 2-liter, the BBS wheels, the 15-inch BBS wheels, the cloth Recaro seats, which I know have their own nickname. I don't speak enough Volkswagen, but I definitely have Volkswagen emotions because this car absolutely gets me going. Fair mileage, and the interior looks to be in really nice condition, despite closing in on 100,000 miles. John, I like this car. I think this car stands to do pretty well, despite it having 4 days to go until it closes, and being at currently kind of a low bid early on in the auction process. So JP, tell us more about this. Help me understand. Did Volkswagen offer the 1.8 like 1 year and then the 2-liter came in on a different year? Or was there a moment when on a particular model year, both engine options overlapped on the GTIs? But this one's really cool with the red stripe in the interior, and that those cloth seats, I think, are everything to me. So John, tell us more about the GTI and why you like it.
Yeah, of course, this car is fantastic. Gotta love a Mark II GTI. We've seen these get some really strong money in the past. In fact, we've seen some kind of weird records that might even indicate some money laundering going on or something like that. But this particular car, when they went to the big bumper era, I think that was 90, or it was one of those mid-year type crossovers. So when the Mark II came out, what would that be? 85. It went all the way to 92. This is the last year, of course. In 90, in the model year 90, they went to the big bumper style. So prior to that, it was the diving boards. When they introduced the big bumper, they came out with a 16 valve engine, and they also had a 1.8 liter 8 valve engine. The 16 valve got bumped up to the 2-liter, whereas the old in the diving boards, those were 1.8s. This is kind of like, if you've got the Alpha and then you got the Sigma, I think of this as kind of the Alpha, and I think the Sigma car really is the 8 valve. If I'm choosing one, I'd rather have the 8 valve than the 16 valve. The 16 valves are, and I'm not poo-pooing either one of them, but I've always kind of liked the lower end torque of the 8 valve, and you can get a lot more power out of them. It's easier to kind of mod them. The 16 valves, they're pretty much capped at what they are. It's hard to get more power out of these, really. You can mod the heck out of them and not get much more. And you got to wind the hell out of them. But either way, this is just a great configuration, all black. You're right, that interior. Those are literally some of the most comfortable seats of all time. I'm trying to get to an interior picture. So this is the last year of the 16 valve. This is the best car of the range. It's interesting that this car at the time, this is also the time that the Corrado was available, and these really languished because the Corrado was cannibalizing the GTI sales. And so Volkswagen had a big decision to make. They then offered, was it 93? They had a big engine bump in the Corrado with the V6, the VR6 version. But that, was significantly more expensive than the GTI, but it was still like the Corrado was so expensive, it was competing with 300Zs and almost 911. I mean, it was big money back then. There was a lot better cars that you could get for the money. So the GTI is the car that kind of won over. Volkswagen said, why are we trying to compete in this up market when we've got the GTI? The GTI is easy to make. It's more scalable. The Corrado was like a one-off. It was a Mark III, but it was just hard for them to make money on them. But they really realized that, what are we doing? The formula is make a Golf and make a bunch of different versions of it. They've got the stripped down version of the Golf, and then they got the GTI. So this one looks, in the initial pictures, looked like I was pretty optimistic, but now as we're getting on the close-up photos, I'm getting a little bit more bearish on it. It doesn't look quite as nice as I had hoped. So, I would like more time with this ad, really kind of getting in and looking these photos to see, does this car, that plastic trim is really hard to find these days, guys. So if you are ever considering one of these, you find one in a marketplace or somewhere and you think you're getting a deal, and you're like, oh, I can just replace the fenders or something like that. Yeah, good luck. These parts are getting harder and harder to find. So be advised on that. But the BBS wheels, where the heck is the darn interior? Oh, there we go. There's the interior. That is just a great place to be. You could drive across the country and only stop to pee and get barbecue, and your back will not get tired. They're like, and it's hard to find these with decent seats because so many of them were pilfered. A lot of people wreck these or crash these cars and they put the seats in other vehicles. It's great to see this one has the roll-up windows too. Just love this thing. I can smell this car. All right. We have seen Mark II GTIs. We saw a record-breaking one maybe a year and a half ago that Mark II with 50,000 miles, that car brought $80,000. That was a much different market. Will the seller of this car have that kind of crazy expectation, or will they be a little bit more realistic? What do you think this car is going to bring?
All right, JP. So our car is currently sitting at $15,200, and that is on just 9 bids. But our car has 4 days to go until it closes. Essentially, this car closes the day of our next show. So we'll have the result right before we go on air. JP, I still think this car's got a way to go. I don't think this, I don't know, man. Oh boy. It's so hard to predict what these cars could go for. That one car sold for like $87,000 in January of 2023. But the next highest sold result, which was in 2022, was a $42,000 car. I don't think this is a $42,000 car, but I do think this is more than a $23,000 car. JP, I'm going to still play it kind of conservative here. I want this car to be $40,000. It'd be cool to think these things were collectible. I feel like if they brought more money, more of these cars would have a future of being preserved instead of like modified and destroyed. And that's kind of what I hope for the car. So I'm going to sort of split the difference between those two. I'm going to give you a bid of $33,000 where I think it will sell. I do think it's poised to go right past $25,000, just because they're so hard to find exactly like this. Last year of the Mark II, stock, all its original stuff. The seats are in great condition. The mileage is fair. It's an attractive colorway. Yeah, I think $33,000 is realistic, and I think it'll sell for that. I don't think this car is going to break 40, but I don't think this car is going to peter out in the mid-20s either. So there you go, $33,000. I'm rationalizing it to myself as I present it to you in the herd. So 33 to you, JP. I'll stop talking.
Yeah, the more I look at the pictures, the more I'm just like, man, you really got to dig into this thing. There's a lot of weird wiring going on under the hood. Just lots of. I mean, look, these cars. It's amazing to see one of these at all. They were so cheap for so long. They all got the hell beaten out of them. They were all owned by young, stupid guys like myself, and they were used as intended. Right? These cars are just so. But that nostalgia is what's going to push this car. I don't think it's going to bring huge money. But I do think because it's a 92 and it is a 16 valve and it does have the BBS wheels, it does have the seats, it does have all the things. I think this car was cleaned up as best to look as good as it possibly can to get it that final, this car is like 75%. To get it that last 25% is going to take a lot. So the question is someone really going to want to spend that kind of time or effort or money to make this a truly collectible car, or is this the kind of thing that someone's going to buy and go, oh, I just want to drive it because it's a great driving experience and I like that it's not the price isn't crazy, so I can actually get into this thing. I'm with you, Deeb. I'm going 35. That's just parking it right above you.
Yeah, that's fair.
And
that's good. That means you like it.
I love the car. I just don't think I think there will be enough people that are going to be excited about it and see maybe this is a value. This isn't the $50,000 one or the $80,000 one, but this is the one that I can get and drive and enjoy and beat the hell out of maybe. I think that's there. What do you guys think out there in the comments?
JP,
yeah.
Let's look at this one right away. Gird is at 22.4, which is a very specific bird and very bearish on this car. 28, 27, 28, 28, 34, 31, 23, 26, 20, 25. Oh man, that's really interesting. There's only a couple people in the 30s with us, so we'll see.
Well, I mean, guys, this car has, it's at 15 grand already, and it still has 4 days to go. We all know that there's always a flurry of bids on the first couple days, and then nothing in the mid, and then on the last day it doubles. So, this car is primed to do 30. To not get, in the high 20, to not get 30 would be a big surprise, and I think that would be an answer to the question that maybe things are correcting much harder than we thought to the point of collapse. If this car only brings 25 grand, I'm going to be very, very surprised. And maybe I'm going to be very, very surprised. I have higher hopes for it. Maybe I'm just too close to it. Maybe I'm too nostalgic for it. Maybe I just really like Mark II Volkswagens. But yeah, a lot of comments out there. Are there new guys in the nerd herd tonight? I think there was.
Reef the sea forever.
Yeah, buddy. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being part of the show. How'd you hear about us? Let us know. And all you other nerd herders, make sure you say hello. Dirty Gringo? Am I saying that? Yeah, okay. Yeah,
what about
new,
Mike
right?
Petty? Have you seen Mike Petty before? That's new to me.
Lots of new guys joining the nerd herd. Thanks, guys. Thanks for finding us.
Yeah.
I'm curious how you guys found us. Let us know. And again,
and
go ahead.
Maximilian did not bid on the car, but he said his money's on Gird. Thanks, Max.
Smart money, man. Better than
he's
Bitcoin.
A Vegas guy.
That's right.
He's a Vegas guy. If anybody's gonna know how to bid, it's gonna be Max. So
Gird's our Vegas odd maker. Yes, yeah. Ray DeMayo. All right, guys. Ray DeMayo, thanks for joining us. How did you find us? Let us know, and hopefully you come back on Sunday. We are gonna wrap this show up. We will be live on Sunday night. At 6:30, like we always are, 6:30 on Sundays and Wednesdays. We're gonna do more predictions. We're gonna have more crazy questions. For you guys that have stuck around this long into the show, you guys are. We do this show because we love you guys and because you guys come back and keep watching. We're trying to step up our game a little bit. We've been getting a lot more views than we used to. We're not a huge channel, clearly, but we couldn't have gotten where we are now without all of your help. And it's just so much fun to see, even when it's only one or two new people in the Nerd Herd. It's great to see you guys join us. It's great to have this community getting bigger and bigger. We noticed that when this show, the views later, I watch the analytics and how many people kind of stay on and fall off, and it definitely falls off towards the end, which is what all longer format shows do. We're trying to ask questions and answer them in the show. That's why we kind of keep going back to that same theme at the beginning. That is a mechanism, because if we're going to pose a question like, is the market collapsing, or do sellers just have an unreasonable expectation, we need to deliver on answering that question. I think we haven't done a good job with that in the past. So if you're new to the show, we're going to just keep trying to get better, and it's because of you guys. So thank you for being here.
Yep.
Deeb, anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
David Lowe, is that a new guy? No, David's been on before, right? Fun stuff. Thank you, David. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, JP, we have Cars Un Cafe in Vegas and in Mill Valley. We hope to see you this Sunday morning. And, of course, we'll hang out with you Sunday night. Have fun driving and tell everybody about Bid Nerds.
All right, guys. See you Sunday.
Nerd! Get those words!